Now, why are we having this meeting here? The fundamental idea is that we feel there is a lot to be gained by collaboration among the SIGs. And in the last ICANN meeting, now uniformly people have been welcoming schools with internet. But in the last ICANN meeting, for instance, there was a concern expressed that while schools are good, is there any way to kind of ensure that they work as expected, that they are able to provide to the participants what the participants are looking for? In short, in the previous session also we discussed this issue of quality assurance. So is more better? Is there some kind of possibility for some guidance that can be given or best practices? This is discussed in the ICANN meeting, ICANN 60 meeting in Abu Dhabi. And consequently, subsequently, we have been ourselves looking at these issues, and that's one of the things that we would like to discuss here. Now, I would like to invite the SIG, Asia Pacific SIGs present here, also the other SIGs, if they want to make a very brief statement about their own initiative, particularly what is unique in your SIG, so that others can at least come to know, and what do you think are the significant challenges that you feel have to be overcome for sustainability for your SIG. Maybe I will start myself because on India SIG, Amrita, would you like to speak on India SIG? Okay, so India SIG was started a couple of years back. We've had two editions, 16 and 17. The participants and speakers have been largely international by design, because we feel that having both South SIG and EuroSIG have a model of multiple countries, people coming together, and we feel that adds value. So we have been even in fact subsidizing some of the costs of international participation. Things like rooms, for example, we have been. Also, our participants are, the first round, we tried to make them self-paying. Didn't work very well. Second round, we made a fellowship for about 30 people, plus open candidates who could come in without. So in the second time, we found that that fellowship was very useful. People did turn up. And in the second round, we had a lot of interest from the local government also. And finally, in the first batch, we did about 50 to 60 in that range, participants. The second, it touched about 80. So we see some traction building up. But funding is important. Fellowships for people, travel, and all the other costs. We have been funded basically by Government of India plus a bunch of smaller support. IZOC has been a funder, ICANN has been a funder. And the organization of this is, who's the body that controls or organizes this? It has been initiated by two Internet Society chapters, Delhi and Trivandrum, where I come from. Delhi is where Amrita and Dr. Govind come from. Now in the second year, there was one more added, that's Kolkata. So there are three Internet Society chapters. Next year we will have another couple more. So we are trying to make it as broad-based as possible. All the syllabus, the content, the speakers, everything is decided by this group only. Although the government does fund us, they don't at all have anything to influence. They have not tried to influence us in terms of any of these things. We feel that government not support so much, but some kind of approval is useful because it gives an official, kind of, yes, sir.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. It's Sandra speaking. I just wanted to make a comment on the funding issue, because this is something which I consider in particular important when it comes to fellowships. Our policy at the European Summer School, and I'm not saying that you have to do it the same way, but I want to share our experiences with you, is that from the 30 places we usually have, we have half of the people which get a fellowship, and half of the people which come on a self-paying basis. Why this? We believe it's kind of a diversity to bring together people who can afford such a course and who cannot afford such a course. Because this also creates an understanding for each other how the world functions in your part of the world, and why can you afford and why can I not afford. And this is something we consider really important, that we also not only see diversity in terms of gender and geographical and so on and so forth and stakeholder, but also in terms of who can afford it and who cannot. A young person from Africa versus an employee from Google. And we had this kind of combination, and this really adds a very significant diversity aspect to the whole group.
I think fully endorse that position. We also have been finding diversity very important for the dynamics of the school. It is not just the teaching and learning aspect, it's also the interactions, and that really adds value. I'll stop speaking at this point. Would you like to add on half a minute?
Yes, answering your question, I do agree with you that those who can pay should pay and those who cannot should be funded, and that's what we have been trying to do. We have the fellowship, and those who can pay, we have paid people who come in, but we try to subsidize it so that in our parts of the world it's difficult for genuine people to come, so we are trying to do that. It encourages people.
Yes, Olga.
Thank you. We have a different model in Latin America. Nobody pays, and kind of half of the students do get a fellowship that includes hotel and meals, and the others get the course. Nobody pays for participating. If there are members of companies that want to participate, they also have to apply, and they also have to go through the selection process. Why is that? In Latin America, it's extremely difficult for especially young professionals to pay for such a training. So we organize the budget in a way that we can afford to invite them, to give them food through all the days, and half of them, approximately half of them, sometimes it's more than half depending on the budget, will have also a hotel and accommodation and all that. So we think that for our region, this is a major thing for more inclusion and more outreach. We also have, in all the 10 years, simultaneous translation all the time, which is extremely expensive, but it's very enabling. Usually it's Spanish-English, and also the 2 times that was organized in Brazil, we had Portuguese, Spanish, and English, and remote participation.
Oh, thanks, Olga, for that. Do you also pay for travel?
That would be nice, but we don't have that much money. It's extremely challenging, the translation is very expensive, and also the hotel, but we think it's rewarding because, and also we rotate among countries, so it is a lot of impact in every community that we go. No, we don't. We have paid some tickets, but sometimes for colleagues from countries that are very difficult for them to travel, but it's an exception. We have done that like 10 times, but it's not the usual rule. But if there's someone that it would be very valuable for him or her to participate, and in their country they are having many problems, then we can go to some sponsors and ask for a special ticket for them. But that's not the general rule, but it could happen.
Thank you, Olga. Abri? Oh, sorry. Abri and then you also.
Just to add quickly on the African school. Until this year, all of the fellows participating had been fully accommodated, and it created 2 issues. One, we would get something like 800 applications for the school, and we're talking about maybe 30 to 40 slots. This year, for the first time, there wasn't sufficient funding to be able to do that full level of funding, so it was split, and we only got 200 applications. So perhaps there's something in that. But certainly within Africa, it's very difficult to find that many people that can actually afford to come down and can stay there. The other complication that the African school has is that up until now, it's always been the week before the African IGF as sort of a training on what's going to happen there. The problem is that the African IGF is sometimes not scheduled and located until very late in the day, like a month or 2 before it happens, which makes putting on a school a challenge. And so we've been looking at, should we find ourselves a home and sit there? I say we, I'm obviously not African, but I've been part of that school since the beginning.
Thank you for that. Renata, please.
Thank you. So, to clarify, I was more a student only of the Brazilian School of Internet Governance, and that was in 2015. But it has travel support for plane and accommodation, and nobody pays registration fees. My observation, my personal observation in this, actually an interesting fact is that playing in Brazil is very expensive. It's cheaper to go to the US. So the following year, the South School of Internet Governance was in Washington, and the Brazilian School of Internet Governance was in São Paulo. So many people from the North and Northeast who weren't selected for the Brazilian School of Internet Governance were actually happy that they would have an opportunity to go to Washington because it was actually cheaper. So just a point of having whatever arrangements, one has to study the local context and the flexibility that one can have to create more inclusion.
Thank you. Please go.
Yes, thank you. Diplo does not organize the School of Military Governance per se, but I just wanted to comment a little bit on the discussions that have been here about the funding struggles and whether participants should be paying or not. For our courses and training activities, we have experimented with various of the models that have been described here, and it's always challenging, even for some, let's say, developed countries that you would presume would be able to afford it. And I'm not talking about the individuals, because I don't think that, especially if they are representing an institution, this should be a responsibility of the individual to pay out of their pocket training, although it's happening as well. But it's often a problem of a budget line. So we would have participants for our courses that certainly would be able to afford it, but at their respective organization wouldn't have the right budget line for training to use the money from, even if we are talking about relatively small registration fee for the course. The model that has worked the best for us was trying, and that's the job I'm doing, to kind of incorporate it in as many projects as we can, so that we have the training and the capacity development courses activities as part of a project that has some funding. This has been an example of the Geneva Internet Platform project, but also many others. Maureen has just come, and she has participated in our capacity development program on multilateral diplomacy for Pacific Islands. Again, throughout this program, we would make sure that we kind of cover the fees for running the course. Just if this helps, yes.
Thanks very much for that. Diana?
Yes, Liana speaking. So for the Armenian, we don't have that challenge because basically the country is very small and it's not a challenge to come and participate to the school. But we have an experience only for one school. It was in this summer, and it was meant for the students basically. And they all were living in one city, in Yerevan, and we didn't have that challenge of accommodation, etc. We just hired a place and we had food for them, and it was for the whole week, for 5 days. So it's not a challenge in this sense, but if we go around to different cities, etc., it might be. But we came from what we had, budget-wise. So since we had that challenge, we designed the program in another way. That's about the funding thing. But about the program, also, maybe I have this question, if we can discuss it also. You said you had a summer school, and it was for 1 week. We tried it for this summer, but then we found out that the program is really very, very packed, and not everyone can understand that it get the ideas of everything, because we went through all the things like economic aspects, socio-cultural, legal, and technical infrastructure, etc., etc. So for the newcomers, for those people, for the students especially, they could not understand thoroughly all these aspects. And we thought that we would redesign the program for a 5 months period. So now the second round that we're launching this January, it will be once in a week, again for the students, for 3-4 hours, and for 5 months period. And maybe I will update you about the results of it.
that's a very interesting aspect you just mentioned, and I want to share some experiences or some of the history back when the school were founded. This happened in 2006. It was during a pre-conference for the IMCR that was taking place in Germany at that time, and Professor Kleinmeister gathered some international experts. And during that meeting, two initiatives have been founded. One is the GigaNet, which is still in place and connected to the global IGF. And then the other one was the Schools on Internet Governance, or at that time we started with the European School on Internet Governance, which is in global, not, in fact not a regional one, but we stay on one place, so we could consider it be a German, but that's also not true, because we invite this. But the purpose of this SIG at that time was teaching internet governance on an academic level. And this is the importance, the academic level. There are other levels necessary, entry levels, no question about that. But at that time we found out that there is no university where you can learn about internet governance. You can do the certain aspects, technology, socioeconomic, and that's actually quite astonishing that after 10 years there is still no university which teaches internet governance as such. And here, again, on an academic level. It's very interesting that you realize in your first round already that it's sometimes overwhelming. And when we are doing the selection of participants, in our school, the barrier is very high. If you are an entry level on a university, we say, do your PhD and maybe come 2 or 3 years later. Because really this was something important. We should keep that academic level. Everything else could be something else, but it's probably not an SIG as it was meant to be in the original sense. With this, I will not say that the other levels are not necessary. Diplo Foundation courses, for instance, or ISO courses, for instance, they are absolutely important to get the people into that topic. But the SIG in its original sense was a very advanced academic level, and this is something which we would like to establish with the foundation of the Dynamic Coalition on Schools and Internet Governance, to really make at least clear on which level you are getting into internet governance. And there are various levels, we all know this. Participating in an IGF can be an entry level as well, an important one. And I really like it that you realized this in the first year already, and that you took action how to deal with it. To deal with that, yes. There's one person in the queue. Adam, did you want to speak as well?
Yes.
So now we have 1, 2, and 3. Go ahead.
Just one query is about in the SIGs, is there any pre-reading list? And I want to know about the pre-reading list, because the topic of all.
Yes, we do have prerequisites.
Okay, and how is the performance? Because participation they do seriously or something? Just that kind of experience we want to know, because we are now going to Nepal SIG. So, what is the performance level, or how they interact with the pre-reading list, and then after in the school?
Okay, maybe we'll park this question when we come to the agenda item. We'll take it up then. Yes, Olga.
Thank you. That's a very challenging thing, especially for a PAC program. That usually what we want to do in Latin America is bring people that would be interested but still need to do this first step. So what we do is, once we have the selected list of fellows, we share documents and information that we already have, and also information sent by the experts that will participate in the program. That helps, although it's usually very challenging. The value that we see in the school is that they get to know each other among the fellows, and they get to know the experts. So maybe they don't get all the information in that week, but they will get a sense of all the issues that are around, and they will get to know who to contact if they need something. All the information is available, but sometimes you need how to digest it and how to review it. So this is what we do. What we are working now, and I think that Sandra makes a very relevant point about the academic level. 1 week is perhaps not enough for an academic in deep level. But we are working with some universities in Argentina and trying to build perhaps a longer program, half presential on-site and half remote, to do it really academic, focused in Latin America. Thank you. And I will have to run to another meeting, so I have to leave in 5 minutes. But thank you. And if you have a list or you make calls or something, if you can include me, that would be very
Are there
appreciated.
any questions for Olga before she leaves? Yes, please.
Good morning, all. My name is Mary. I'm from Nigeria. And the Nigerian IGF, we have been trying to run Nigeria School of Internet Governance. And our first challenge is that first we don't know whether there's a designed program, standard program that the whole of the coalition runs, or you can just design your own if that relates to your own environment or region. So we're hoping by 2018 we're going to run School of Internet Governance before we do our normal program for the year. So I would like to, those of you that have been doing it, so that you can clarify to me. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think it's maybe a different answer from different schools. What we do is to have general themes related with internet governance, and that changed every year because that's dynamic. And then we go into regional and national challenges. That, of course, is not the same in Latin America than Europe or Asia or different countries in Latin America. So as we rotate among countries, we design the program in these 3 levels. General issues perhaps addressed by international experts, and then you have regional experts, and then you have the national. So we design the program.